Hi everyone, I'm Chad Shoup, and welcome to my latest edition of Bank It or Tank It. This week we're covering a very popular stock, one that has been shooting sky high over the last couple of months, and the company is Square. And we're going to dive into everything you need to know about this stock today by taking a look at the fundamentals, the sentiment, and the technicals to figure out if this is a stock that you want to bank on going higher over the next 12 months, or if it's one that's going to be going lower and it's going to be on my Tank It list for today. So the stock that we're covering today is Square, ticker symbol SQ. Now, before we dive into the details of Square and what's going on with the stock lately, I just want to give a big shout out to Stacy, who reached out to me on Twitter. Let me know what she did with one of our quick take stocks. So take a look at this comment she left me on Twitter. Now, I don't expect everyone to run out and trade options based on the stocks that I mentioned here, but it's just great to see that she took the insights that I shared in a Bank It or Tank It in one of my quick takes on PayPal, and she turned that information into a 200% profit in a little over a month. So that's fantastic news, Stacy. I'm really glad to hear that. And again, I don't encourage anyone, if you're not comfortable with options, to rushing out and trading those, but it just shows the power of options when you just have some key levels like we touch on in our videos, that you can take that information and turn it around into some quick profits. And you don't have to go learn how to trade options on your own. I've actually pulled together a ton of resources, and I just started a new weekly newsletter that's free. It's called my Weekly Options Corner, and there will be a link below this video that you can scroll down and figure out how to sign up for that if you haven't already. But my whole goal with that is just over the coming weeks, we're going to continue to focus on options content, different ways to trade options, and just make sure that everybody has a total understanding of how to use options to generate profits in their account, just like Stacy did. I want you to be able to be that confident and be able to do those same things in your account, so that way you can find your own triple-digit profit opportunities. And on top of that, if you don't want to do it all the work, then of course I already have my favorite ways to find options and trade options. You can let me do the heavy lifting for you to find the option opportunities that are out there for you to take advantage of. So thanks, Stacy, for reaching out and letting us know how you did on that stock. And just keep in mind, we covered her stocks last week in our quick takes, and we're going to continue to feature stocks that you all recommend, that you comment either on Twitter or under these YouTube videos. So go below, leave me a comment on what stocks you want me to feature in an upcoming Bank It or Tank It or quick takes video, and I'll be sure to feature them and get to them in the coming weeks. So today's stock, Square, comes from James Clark. He recommended this a couple of weeks ago when we talked about Lockheed Martin. He wanted me to take a look at a few other stocks, but Square was one of them, and it's going to be a stock that we're going to cover today because this baby has been on fire here in 2020. It's up over 160%, and it's up nearly 400% since the crash that we had from the pandemic. So this is a stock that's just been ripping higher, had phenomenal results for the second quarter. And something to keep in mind, though, is that their revenue really surged, and it was up about 50% from last year's Q2 to this year Q2. So year over year, it had a massive jump. And all that really had to do with trading volatility in Bitcoin, just more trading volumes, and the way they account that in their revenues made for this big jump. But it only delivers a little bit of profit, and really when you strip out the Bitcoin trading profits that they saw, this is a company that continued to struggle in first quarter and second quarter this year, because their platforms are used through small businesses, and they're seeing growth in their Cash App, which is more consumer to consumer, people sending money, people getting direct deposits, and just more like a charge card for them. And that's really helped them out. That helped them kind of smooth this process out here going through a pandemic. And that's also great news for the company, because they're going through what really is putting a lot of small businesses underwater. And this Square is by no means a small business anymore. But when you look at some of the competitors that they're going up against, they're still a relatively small company. And they're sitting here seeing strength by being innovative, getting into these different industries and allowing Bitcoin trading and skimming a little bit of profit off of that. And now they're going to be accepting Bitcoin. And so they're really just out front and cutting edge technology here, using some of the latest financial instruments that are out there to make the best of it for their platform. So today we're going to dive into the fundamentals to start and figure out what's going on with Square and why it's up so much this year. We're pulling up the key stats for Square, and these have the total revenues as the blue bars on the chart, and the metric for those on the right hand side, and then the line on the graph is the net income, and that's key is going to be on the left hand side. So this is just showing you how their performance has been from 2016 to now, and then how they're expected to be in 2021 and 2022. And you can see that they have a little bit of a dip here in 2020, especially their actual earnings for June 30th show a little bit of a dip, and then that's expected to kind of continue, at least for the net income side, into the end of the year. But from there, it just skyrockets and continues to go higher. And what I like about seeing this is that there's no massive dip here. It's just a slight pullback, and we don't really see it reflected in the revenues at all. The revenues are just on a straight shot higher. And when you look at the second quarter results, the revenues that they're seeing in their Bitcoin department is really helping smooth that out, because when you strip out the revenues from Bitcoin in the second quarter, they actually had negative revenue growth. That's something to keep in mind. But when you look at what happened in the first quarter and second quarter, considering they're small business platforms, that's really what their clients are, is for using their payment platforms. This is a company that's really thriving during that time period and still doing well because of these other areas that they're in. So this chart for their key stats is very promising to me. I like that we're seeing just a steady uptrend in net income, in revenues, and as their revenues continue to climb, it's going to pull their net income higher as they continue to focus more on being profitable instead of just finding more sales. So now let's do a quick comparable analysis to some of the other payment companies in the industry, and we want to see how Square matches up. So here's a chart with some of these bigger companies, and the main ones to point out though are going to be PayPal. I think that's their biggest direct competitor, because PayPal is really heavily involved with the consumer aspect of this, not so much the business side. I know we use PayPal when we want to send money to friends and family. It's the easiest thing to do. All of our friends and family have PayPal, but that's the area that Square is just starting to dip their toes into. With their Cash App, they're getting more into getting direct deposits and sending money to friends and family, making it easier and making it offer them another growth avenue. But on a payment side, where you go to a small business restaurant and they accept your payment basically on an iPad, these are people that are competing with MasterCard and Visa, because Square is trying to work their way into all these platforms. And with the Cash App, now they have essentially have their own card that they're spending and collecting fees from too. And even though that's Visa, that's the brand on it, Visa and MasterCard are payment companies, and Square is looking to disrupt that industry. So you can just look at how massive those companies are. $459 billion for Visa, $366 billion for MasterCard, and even PayPal, $239 billion for PayPal. Square is just a $69 billion company. So it's very small compared to the giants in the industry, and that's really where they're targeting. They're a disruptor. They're coming in, creating new products. They have a lot of clients at this point. Small businesses were hurt during the pandemic, but they're going to bounce back, and they're going to continue to thrive and have more clients and expand their platforms even more in the coming years. So the fact that they're a smaller company here just means that there's a lot more growth to be had even after the 400% rally that we've seen since the bottom during the pandemic sell-off. When you look at the short interest, this just gives us an idea of how many people are looking to short their shares, and we look at it as a percent of the shares outstanding. So for Square, 6% of their total shares outstanding are people betting on a stock to go lower. The only company on here that's higher is the Western Union, and their whole business model is getting completely disrupted by PayPal and Square. So that's a company that's really falling behind, and that's why we see a big short interest there. But with PayPal, MasterCard, and Visa, there's not many people looking to short those stocks because they're already large and established, and Square is kind of borderline. They're definitely a growing company and becoming very, very large. They haven't quite gotten over the hump yet, and when you include the fact that they're a smaller company, but they've seen this enormous growth over the last couple of years, that's why we're seeing a higher percentage of shares being sold short at the time. And right here, our next tab is just going to show you that the price to earnings ratio is 241 times earnings for Square. And that's enormous. It's the highest on the list. When you look at PayPal, it's at 93 times earnings, which is extremely high for a large stock like that. But even MasterCard, Visa, still 50 and 41 times earnings. So this is an industry that's generating high price to earnings ratios, but Square takes the cake. It's the highest of them all, and it's alarming a little bit, and that's why we're seeing a higher short interest ratio for it. But when you looked at their market cap, where this company is being valued, they're still a small company in this industry with massive growth potential. So that 241 times price to earnings ratio is going to change. They're just now starting to find their profitability, and as they become more profitable in the coming years, that price to earnings ratio is going to get trimmed lower as they find some stability and find a nice profit margin to continue to ride from there. All right, now we'll flip over and we're going to take a look at their total revenues, the compound average annual growth rate over the last 3 years, in their net income. And for Square, they only have total revenues at 45%. That means over the last 3 years, they've averaged a 45% growth rate each and every single year. And for net income, it doesn't show anything for Square because they were negative so it just doesn't give you the right metric for that because they start in negative. But you can see that their revenue growth is the highest on the chart here. It crushes PayPal, Visa, MasterCard, blows them out of the water. And yes, net income, they don't get to show up on there yet because they're still a younger company. But I love that their revenues are growing at a very fast rate, and that helps you be a little bit more okay about the high price to earnings ratio. And then dividend yield, the last column here, just shows you that, yes, PayPal's a large cap stock, but they don't pay dividends yet. But MasterCard, Visa, you can see Western Union, once they got to be so big that their growth really slowed, they turned to dividends to try to please investors, and it just still kind of failed for them. It didn't really work out because once you turn in income, you're turning away from the growth model. But right now, Square is fully invested in finding growth, and that's going to benefit them over the next several years as they continue to find innovative industries to dive into and to find more profit opportunities in. Now, right before we flip over and take a look at the price charts, I like to look at the analyst community and see what they have the stock rated. And right now, according to S&P Capital IQ, there's 36 analysts that cover the stock, and overall, the recommendation is a hold, 2.55. They have it as a hold. Once we take a look at this chart and you see the stock, you know somebody should be fired over having this company as listed as a hold. And since that's the average out of 36, so that means that about half of these analysts actually have the stock below 2.55. Maybe it's even lower than a hold for some of these analysts. And just the way it's been ripping higher, if that was your job and this is how you rated the stock, you clearly missed it and you should not be covering this company. So on the sentiment aspect, it's a hold right now, but the stock is ripping higher. So that just tells you that Wall Street's behind the curve on this company. It's continued to climb, and I don't see the hold here as a worrying sign for the stock. I just see it as them being behind the curve and not seeing the strength that Square was going to put up over these first couple of quarters during all the volatility in the market that we've seen, and with the pandemic, the economic shutdown. This is a payment company, so with people not going out, not shopping as much, restaurants being closed, that really hurt their revenues, but they've been able to adapt and adjust and continue to show strength, and Wall Street just missed that one. So let's pull up the price chart so that way I can show you what I'm talking about. So we're starting with a little bit longer term view here, just going back a couple of years, 2018. You can see that Square got ahead of itself, consolidated for almost 2 years there, where it didn't really go anywhere. And then it broke below the major support line, which was bearish to see, and it definitely raised red flags, dropped really sharply. And this is part of the economic shutdown, part of the pandemic that we saw. People were concerned about how much revenues they were losing, but fell all the way to below $38 a share. Then surged higher out of that, got back into the trend area that they were, and then blew past the resistance of their long-term consolidation period. This was a great moment for the stock. Once it got above this key resistance, it continued to climb up on this 390% rally that we've seen from the lows to the high that we are currently sitting at. So this is a massive move for the company. Again, they're up over 160% just from the start of this year. So in January 2020, which is right around here, they're up 160% since then. So this stock has just been on a tear, and part of that is their Bitcoin, and some of this is hype, but really just even the Bitcoin that they're allowing, Bitcoin trading, and they're just skimming some profits from transaction fees. But just the fact that they have it, they're seeing more growth in their Cash App, and that's what's helping them adjust during this volatile period in the market, that they're not having to rely so much on their sales from businesses, that they're having consumers take their app and use their cards and use it for spending and sharing money, and they collect fees that way. So that's helped the company continue to surge higher out of this. And now I just wanted to point out these two that are really, they're basically wedge patterns here that formed, and then we had this consolidation period, and then it started to break out and continue to climb higher from there. Then it consolidated again, which these consolidation periods, this is more like a rising wedge, but these consolidation periods that we see after these very strong rallies, big breakouts, and then you get a consolidation, are actually great to see. A lot of people get nervous because it's not continuing to just shoot straight higher, but no stocks do that. They continue to consolidate. They have periods like this where it's some uncertainty to figure out what's going to happen next, but it's healthy because it allows for investors to exchange shares, some people taking profits, more people buying into it without seeing a massive sell-off. It's more worrisome when you see the stock shoot higher and then it collapses 50% the next day. That's more concerning than this. So this is great to see. And we already had one wedge pattern where we had the breakout higher. Now we're in a rising wedge pattern, and we're just days away from a breakout on this. And if you're looking to trade this stock, if you're bullish and you own shares, then by no means is this the time to sell. They're really doing all the great things, and this is during a volatile period. So even if you get a bit of a sell-off here, you still want to be bullish on this stock long term. But when it comes to the short-term trends, it's more recent rising resistance lines and rising support area right here is what you're going to watch. Once we get a breakout that closes above this rising resistance, that's going to signal even more gains to come. And I know it doesn't feel that way, but it's there. There's potential here that we're going to see another $30 or $40 rip higher in the stock without a problem before we see a sell-off or anything else. So this stock can continue to go higher. We just want to pay attention to these key levels. And if we get a break below this, then I'd like to extend this resistance line more as a key area of support that was the previous level and see if it can hold that. And then maybe we can see some sideways movement between 160 and about 135 a share. That'd be really bullish to see in the stock. So even if that happens, I would still stay bullish. If it falls below 135, then maybe you just take a better look at the stock, figure out what's going on, and look for it down the road. But overall, this stock is on my bank it list. I like the company. I like what they're doing. I like how they're being innovative and trying new things and not afraid to get out there and see what happens with these different industries and accepting Bitcoin and getting into that very skeptical, very highly volatile, and whether you like it or not, they're finding ways to make a profit from it, and who can argue with that? Now, because of the massive run that we've seen in the stock and how shares have just ripped higher, this stock, it's on my bank it list, but for my price target, I'm just going to put it at another 25% rally, around $200 a share. That's 25% from the prices that it's currently trading around. So that's my price target over the next 12 months, and I'd love for it to overshoot that, but I just think that even if it overshoots it, 12 months from now, it's going to be trading around $200 a share. So that's my price target for Square, and it's definitely a bank it stock. We ran through the fundamentals, the sentiment, and the technicals that all checked out for this stock. So this stock's going to stay on my bank it list for today. And with our price target at $200 a share, it's got plenty of upside from here to continue trading the company. So that's all for my bank it or tank it today. I hope you enjoyed it. Be sure to leave me a comment below, and don't forget to click the like button to let me know if you enjoyed this video. So until next time, I'm Chad Shoup.